Good afternoon, everyone. This is Thaddeus the Blogger here, and today we're going to talk about Donald Trump. And we're going to talk about Donald Trump in terms of what you guys really need to know about why he ran to be president of the United States. And, the problem with Donald Trump is that, he's a con man. And, this is not agenda. This is just who he is. But in order to understand why Donald Trump ran to be president of the United States, we're going to have to talk about this in terms of some painful context. And that means that the Republicans are going to have to eat this a little bit because you own Donald Trump. But the goal here is to remind you that he lied to you, he tricked you, he deceived you, he fooled you. And that context for why he worked with Russia, because I will flat out say he's guilty of Russian collusion, he knows Russia helped him, and he doesn't care because he's all about money, not about you. The context we're going to talk about is in the three of you, with Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, and his supporters, and we're going to call them the easily conned, right, the con man, and the criminally insane, because that's who Vladimir Putin is. He's a criminally insane lunatic. Now, this is what it's all about right here. I want to draw your attention for a moment to these two graphs right here. And what these two graphs demonstrate is this is Donald Trump's rise to power right here. If you come across the bottom here, these are all 11 primary debates. Remember, there were 12 primary debates, but he skipped one. As Donald Trump wins the primary debates, his rise in popularity goes up, then he loses, right? These are the presidential debates, which he lost to Hillary Clinton, and then he won the presidency. And if we compare his rise to power, right, in terms of him winning the debates and losing the debates and winning the presidency, and we compare that to the Russian energy stock in Russia, the Russian energy sector, their energy stocks, we see that they're exactly the same. This is not coincidence. This is the plan, at least in part, that Russia and Donald Trump and his campaign worked together to produce. So this is not coincidence, okay? And in order to understand, though, how this all came about, we do have to talk about this in the context of how Vladimir Putin came to help Donald Trump win the presidency. And for that, we start with the very basic question about Donald Trump. And that very basic question is this, okay? Why would Donald Trump run to be president of the United States? What would be his motive, right? After all, he's a billionaire. Now, actually, he's closer to a millionaire, but his fragile, petty, sanctimonious, thin-skinned ego won't allow it to happen. So for argument's sake, fine, we'll say he's a billionaire. But nevertheless, he does eat breakfast every morning on a golden throne, right? He had a successful television show, which I did enjoy. I thought The Celebrity Apprentice was a trip. It was a fun show to watch. And he arguably has the first lady, the hottest first lady, in the history of first ladies, right? So this man has it all. Why run to be president of the United States? And that answer relates to motive and money, Mother Russia, big oil, and the energy sector. All right? Now, did Donald Trump give us any clues to why he was running for president? Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, he did, right? And, from the very get-go, he was a big proponent of Russia, where he said this during the campaign.
We're all tough guys, but wouldn't it be nice if, Russia and us could knock out an enemy together, not us bear the full cost sometimes,
Right, so everybody remembers that. Okay, that was Donald Trump, right, during the campaign, already talking about how important Russia was from the get-go. His love affair with Vladimir Putin, it endures, right? Everybody remembers when he once said this, too, during this now infamous interview with Matt Lauer, right? You remember this.
The beautiful part of getting along. Russia wants to defeat ISIS as badly as we do. If we had a relationship with Russia, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could work on it together and knock the hell out of ISIS? Wouldn't that be a wonderful
Let me ask you about some of the things you said about Vladimir Putin. You said, I will tell you, in terms of leadership, he's getting an A. Our president is not doing so well. And when referring to a comment that Putin made about you, I think he called you a brilliant leader, you said it's always a great honor to be so nicely complimented by a man so highly respected within his country and beyond?
Well, he does have an 82% approval rating according to the different pollsters who, by the way, some of them are based right here. Look.
He's also a guy who annexed Crimea, invaded Ukraine, supports Assad in Syria, supports Iran, is trying to undermine our influence in key regions of the world, and according to our intelligence community, probably is the main suspect for the hacking of the DNC computers.
So, these are all of the things that Vladimir Putin is guilty of, right? He hacked our election and Donald Trump supports him. And why? Well, because he likes his money, Donald Trump. He doesn't give a shit about any of you, okay? But let's review all of the things that Vladimir Putin has done. Annexed Crimea. He invaded the Ukraine. He supports Assad in Syria. He supports Iran, right? Which is not entirely a bad thing. Republicans have a fanatical obsession with Iran. And he hacked the DNC. And what does Comrade Trumpsky say? He's got an 82% approval rating. As a leader, he's getting an A. Actually, an 82% is a B-. If Donald Trump hadn't bought his way through business school, he might have actually understood how collegiate grading systems work. But he's an idiot. Okay, nevertheless, Donald Trump brings up a valid point, right? As far as Vladimir Putin is concerned, he soars over an 82% approval rating. So, this is another question now that we have to ask, right? Why does Vladimir Putin have such a high approval rating? Well, could it be, right? Could this give birth to an 82% approval rating? Or that when you murder journalists, right? If you're a dictator and you kill journalists with impunity, that citizens don't get the informed truth? Ah, yes, everyone, we're going to introduce to you now two Republicans. I want to introduce to you, to the Republican voter, the one person that you know nothing about, and her name is Anna Politkovskaya. I apologize to the good Russian people. I'm terrible at pronouncing your last names. So who is this woman? And how does she relate to Vladimir Putin? Well, that's a very good question, Republicans, and this is how. On the day of his 54th birthday, okay, this was October 7th, 2006, okay, the president of Russia got his best birthday gift ever. And what was that birthday gift? Okay, on that day, armed KGB agents, remember I say KGB now, they're called the FSB, they were dressed in plain clothes, they walked into Anna's apartment and they gunned her down. Okay, and who ordered this? Okay, well, who ordered the death of her? Well, Vladimir Putin did, right? But it gets even better. Okay, anyone remember this guy? Sure you know who this guy is. No? Okay, well, maybe you'd remember him better from this picture. Okay, this is the now forgotten Alexander Litvinenko. Sorry if I said that wrong. Everybody remembers what happened to him, right? He was a former KGB FSB agent who turned against Putin, and then Putin poisoned him with radioactive isotope polonium-210. Was anybody else poisoned? Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, they were. In 2004, Anna was poisoned, but it was a failed assassination attempt, and then 2 years later, she was shot dead. Okay? And who ordered both of these hits? This guy did. Right here. He's the guy who killed them both because he's a charming sociopathic dictator. He's a sociopath, right? That's why, but there's a reason why Trump supports him. So what was the connection of these two, both Anna and Alex, right? Well, they were writing a book about Vladimir Putin. Right? And what was this book about? Well, it was a book about Putin's crimes. And it was really focusing on the 1999 apartment Russian bombings. Okay? And the 1999 apartment Russian bombings are what solidified Putin's rise to power. The bombings occurred in Moscow, Donetsk, and Volgansk, however you say that. But these are the three cities that the apartment bombings occurred in. Okay? Now, keep going. This gets better. And what was the end result of these bombings? This big wave of fear went through Russia. Okay, and it led to the Second Chechenian War, and it solidified his rise to power. Okay, and the FSB, the KGB at that time, under the direction of Vladimir Putin and with his help, bombed his own city. Okay, and what these two were doing when she was shot dead on Putin's 54th birthday, she was meeting with him. She was meeting with Alex, okay, to write this book. Okay, and on his 54th birthday, October 7th, 2006, she was killed. 1 week later, 1 week after she was killed, Alexander Litvinenko blamed her death on Vladimir Putin. And less than 2 months later, he was dead. And this is the man who did it. Okay, there's no doubt. He killed them both because he's an insane lunatic in charge of Russia. The situation with journalists in Russia is so bad that an organization called Reporters Without Borders issues something called the Press Freedom Index. And the Press Freedom Index gives Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, and Pakistan all better approval ratings than Mother Russia. Now I want that to sink in for a minute, right? How bad does Mother Russia have to be that Pakistan, Ethiopia, and Zimbabwe all have greater freedom of press than what is supposedly a developed nation in the world? Okay, but that's not the only one. Okay, the situation with journalists is so bad that in 2015, an organization called the Freedom House, which is a non-governmental organization that does research on democracy, human rights, political freedom, and freedom of the press, gives a score where 1 to 100, okay, that's their score. 100 is the worst. Okay, 1 is the best. Mother Russia gets an 86. Okay, so that's how dire the situation is there. That's why he has an 82% approval rating. In 2003, there was a special commission called the Kovalev Commission that tried to investigate the key incidents surrounding the 1999 Vladimir Putin-led apartment bombings. This is a lawmaker. His name is Russian lawmaker Sergei Yushchenkov, and this happy fellow is another Russian lawmaker, Yuri Shchenchkowin. Sorry, Yuri, if I said that name wrong, and the reason that I apologize is because both of these men are dead. So try to understand, Republicans, what's going on here, okay? Vladimir Putin is exterminating the people who are investigating his crimes. And who was president during these assassinations? Well, who do you think it was? This man right here. Okay, another Putin critic silenced. Okay, can we think of anyone else that was like that? Well, yeah, actually we can. Adolf Hitler and Vladimir Putin are a lot alike. Okay, just like the killings of Russian journalists, KGB agents, and Putin's lawmaker political rivals. Okay, Adolf Hitler assassinated Ernest Röhm and Gregor Strasser in the Night of Long Knives. And one more thing before getting back to Donald Trump. The purpose is not to highlight all of the crimes of Putin or Hitler. A lot of them we probably don't even know about, right? But it is to help you understand, okay, why Donald Trump calls Vladimir Putin a great man, and what you Republicans failed to take into consideration during this election that has now cost you your own health insurance. Okay, so, but why does Donald Trump like him so much? For that answer, we look no further than this right here. And what is that? Well, this is Trump's financial disclosure statement that he filed with the FEC, right? He had to file this. He was required by law to file it before running for President of the United States. And what does it show? Well, it shows that his 3 primary holdings in America. Oops, sorry, let me go back to that. It shows that his three primary holdings, his assets in America, are real estate, casinos, and golf. Okay, this is widely available to anyone who wants to take a look at it. And of course, you're going to say, so well, we already know that. We already know that. Going to make America great again. Okay, but now ask yourself this. Of Trump's 3 major businesses in America, right, his real estate, his casinos, and his golf, of these 3, okay, which of these has suffered staggering financial losses over the years, right? And the answer is all of them, because he's a terrible businessman. Okay, without going into a long review of it, does anyone remember the Great Recession of 2007? Okay, well, let's review it quickly. Big banks like Bear Stearns and Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae gave high-risk mortgages, right, to idiots. Okay, and then they chopped these mortgages up as security investments and sold them all over the world and backed their losses with basically AIG, right? And when these American idiots, a lot of them were middle class too, of course, were gaming the system, when they couldn't pay their adjustable rate mortgages, okay, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and Bear Stearns took major losses. They went to AIG and said, pay up because we're losing money. And they said, we can't, we're broke, there's too many. And the entire global economy almost collapsed. Of course, this was done under the guise of Republican cries for deregulation, as usual, right? And who owned millions of dollars in real estate as the real estate market was collapsing, right? Our Cheetos color president did, right? So what's the final conclusion of our analysis regarding the president's real estate assets, right? Comrade Trumpsky took a financial bathski. He lost money, right? And what about his second major asset in America, his casinos? Well, after multiple bankruptcies, debt financing, and money laundering, of course he was laundering money because he's a crook. The casino closed in 2014. 3,000 American workers laid off. Right, Republicans? 3,000 American workers laid off, and he defaulted on their pensions. This is them out there protesting. And yet Trump saved 700 jobs at Ford and about 730 at Carrier. Remember, the Carrier jobs are lost now, most of them. But when I was putting this together, there was a possibility he was still saving them. But nevertheless, if you subtract the jobs he supposedly saved, right, from the people laid off, Donald Trump has a net job loss just himself of 1,570 jobs. Okay? And what do you this is what you care about. He's saving us from homosexuals, because some of you nut jobs who simply refuse to address your own fears somehow have become convinced that this idiot is an incarnate of Jesus Christ. Right? So what about Trump's casinos? Was there another casino that suffered financial problems? Yeah, Trump Plaza, another one of his closed casinos, 1,300 people laid off. So let's review Trump math. Assuming he saved all those jobs at Carrier, right? He lost 3,000 from the Taj, 1,300 from that dump called the Plaza, okay? But he saved 1,400. It's actually less than that. But his total net job loss of him alone is 2,870 Americans lost their jobs. And why did the casinos close? Again, aside from money laundering, bad debt financing, and overspending, the other answer is competition. Donald Trump doesn't know what it's like to compete. He can't. He doesn't know how to do it. This is the Mohegan Sun Casino in northeastern Pennsylvania. I've been there. This is the Maryland Live Casino in Maryland. This is the Sugar House in Philly. Right? All of these regional casinos propped up, and the idiot had no idea how to get people back into his casinos. Right? The goof can't handle competition. Okay? This is just his casinos. Remember, his real estate also took a bath. So what's the end result of his casinos? Right? Well, when it comes to his casinos, Comrade Trumpsky took another financial basket and he lost money. And finally, let's take a look at Trump's last major financial asset in America, right? Golf. The dumbest sport ever created. But arguably, there is no sport more on the decline in America than this dopey game. Okay? And why is it on the decline? Well, it's expensive, right? It takes hours to play. It's extremely frustrating. And golf is so absolutely on the decline that this man right here, this is Bryant Gumbel. He did an entire expose on his show, Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel, on HBO about this very subject. And if you've never seen Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel, I highly recommend you check this show out. It's phenomenal. One of the best investigative shows and journalistic shows on sports in America. And so what did this expose show about Donald Trump? Well, this is what it showed. Hold on a minute.
The sports leaders these days are trying desperate measures to cope with golf's surprisingly desperate times. This was Bridgewater, a highly touted golf course in Central Florida, when it opened just 7 years ago. And this is what Bridgewater looks like today. And this is what's left. What's happened to Bridgewater pains Steve Ekovich, because he's a realtor who specializes in golf course properties. On average, 130 American courses have closed every year for the last 8 years.
I was doing 20, 30 golf courses at a time. It was a great business, but it dropped like a rock in 2007.
Every macro indicator that we've been looking at for the past 20 years, rounds played, number of minorities playing, women coming into the game, all of these things that we've tracked says that there's less people playing, and the ones that are playing less frequently.
Everybody wants to play like Tiger Woods. You can't play like Tiger Woods. Tiger finds his ball every hole. They don't find the golf ball every hole. That is the problem.
So these somewhat crazy ideas that are being spawned by the problems of golf, these have your blessing?
What difference does it make if it brings people in and introduces them to the game?
I just don't like where the game looks like it's going, and it's not in the right direction.
But Mark King thinks he may have a solution to the game's problems.
There it is, future of golf, 15-inch cup.
God almighty!
No, I wanted to make it 25 inches, but they said no, just make it 15. Hello! except for you can't miss with that. Come on. That's the best.
But if purists feel pizza pie-sized holes are somehow sacrilegious, imagine what those purists think of this. Foot golf.
a clear indication of just how far some courses are willing to go to increase revenue at their facilities.
Nice.
Foot golf may seem an unlikely option to gain popular traction, but it is Topgolf, one of the fastest growing entertainment chains in the country, that seems the most promising. Souped up driving range that is part sports bar and part nightclub. Topgolf is like nothing the game has ever seen.
Okay, so let's review that. Okay, this is the new face of golf, right? Pizza pie-sized golf holes. Okay, foot golf or soccer golf, right? And then we've also got video game style driving ranges, right? And sports bars. Probably actually not a bad idea. But there's only one thing missing to help the Donald, right, bring his golf assets back into check, and that's some strippers and some black tar heroin, right? All we need for Donald to start making more money for golf are pole dancers and heroin. Now, what can we finally say about the conclusion of Trump's last major financial asset in America? When it comes to pizza golf, right, the big baby took another financial basket. So, finally, what does all this mean? How is it related to Putin and Trump and his bid for the U.S. presidency? How does he still make money when all three of his American businesses have taken major losses? And for that answer, we go back to Trump's financial disclosure statement, and his entire business model, his shitty business model, is shaped like this. He buys a building like this, right? Trump Tower, assuming he's not just leasing his name. He actually doesn't buy the building. He finances the building with a mortgage, okay? And then he takes a little piece of it and he turns it into an LLC, okay? And with this LLC incorporated out of a room in the building that he owns, he takes these tax breaks and he invests it in other areas. Okay? One such example is the Mar-a-Lago Golf Resort. Right? Everybody knows this crappy dump, right? And, you know, this goof of our president lists 4 businesses at the same address, all incorporated. 1 is a Mar-a-Lago Club Incorporated, 2 is Mar-a-Lago Club LLC, 3 is Trump Country Club, and 4 is the Trump International Golf Club. All 4 of them listed in one building because he can't afford the mortgages, right? Need another? Okay, how about this piece of shit building? Look at that dump, right? Dirty, right? And what is it? This is Trump Building at 40 Wall Street, okay? He purchased this crappy skyscraper for $50 million, right? This was back in my research in the 1990s, I think, and here's a metaphorical picture of sort of what it's like. It was an old New York City skyscraper, built, I think, in the 1920s, and it was run down, neglected, and dilapidated, and what was he trying to do? Flip this skyscraper, right? He wanted to buy it, renovate it, sell it, slap some paint on it, you know, put up some pictures of himself, you know, some spackle, right? And then he was going to flip this dump, right? So he bought it for 50. He wanted to sell it for 300, but nobody bought it. Nobody bought this piece of crap. He thought he'd hit the jackpot because I'm a genius. I'm a genius. Oh, I'm so great because I'm a genius, right? Except that Trump forgot that the skyscraper was built, back in the 1930s, and no one wanted a renovated, overpriced piece of shit that had bad plumbing and bad wiring and rats all over the place and asbestos, right? So he got stuck with the building, and when the mortgage came due, he needed another tax break. LLC to the rescue because I'm a genius, right? So these are the LLCs incorporated out of the skyscraper. 40 Wall Street Development Associations incorporated in 1995 when he purchased this dump. Okay, then he incorporated 40 Wall Street LLC. Right, there's an innovative business, and then 40 Wall Street Member Corp in the same year. And then when he needed another tax break, he developed a brand new innovative business called 40 Wall Street Commercial LLC. Because he was right about something that he said, right? You can learn more from my financial disclosure than you can from my tax return. Right? Well, you can't learn more from his financial disclosure than you can from his tax return. And we're going to get to that. But you can learn about what he's hiding if you're paying attention. And what did we learn? He's fucking broke. He's flat broke. He has no money. He's heavily leveraged against everything, and he's no billionaire. He's just a paper billionaire. And you can't business model your way out of a shitty product, right? And his shitty product is himself, right? That's his shitty product. He's broke, he's broke, he's broke, right? And that's why he's got to sell crappy products and pimp out the White House during his inauguration. Everybody remember this, right? Everybody remembers this. Get your set of 2 inauguration collection glasses, number 45. Get your beer mug holders. Go, get number 45. Donald Trump, get your set of 2. Right? Get your stupid coffee mug, inauguration number 45, get your buttons, right? Get your baseball cap, get your fucking tote bag. Who buys a fucking 45 tote bag? What idiot would spend money on this? Help Donald Trump pay his legal fees. Oh, come here, get your beer pong cups. Get your beer pong cups, everybody, because you know when Donald Trump, when you go to his campaign rally, the only way you can tolerate him is if you got a vat of alcohol streaming through your bloodstream, right? And don't forget your hoodie. Come on, get your hoodie, and don't forget your stupid medallion. People actually bought this crap. And so what does all this mean, and how does it tie together between the sociopath and the con man? For that answer, we need 2 more things, and that's what Vladimir Putin did. The first was when he annexed Crimea from the Ukraine, and the second was the invasion of Ukraine itself. Okay, in 2014, with Comrade Putin taking advantage of political unrest, he sent in his armed troops without the insignia on their uniforms. Why he thought people wouldn't know it was him is beyond me, but, you know, sociopaths are not always necessarily intelligent. And then the economic sanctions came down, and many people, of course, they're Republicans and they're GOPs and they're idiots and they're ignorant. Many people thought the sanctions made Obama look weak, right? Except that the Republican-led Senate and House just passed more sanctions, and Donald Trump won't enforce them because that's where his money is. It's in Russia. Okay, but anyway, back to the presentation. Many people thought, right, that the sanctions made Obama look weak. Beware my sanctions. Right, here's another one, another political cartoon, right? And here's another one. It's a little out of focus. Okay, come back or I'll be forced to draft a strongly worded condemnation. Of course, many, these are all Republicans and idiots who don't understand complex policy. Okay, they don't understand complex foreign policy. But as usual, if you repeat a lie often enough, you're a Republican. It was a GOP lie, so let's take a look at what the sanctions really did. They had a damning effect on the Russian economy. The ruble began to collapse, and it helped initiate something called the Russian financial crisis of 2014, which was far worse than the Great Recession of 2007 here in America, at least in terms of its impact on the citizens. Okay? When these sanctions came in, Russia saw a 30% decline in the stock market. And the value of the ruble collapsed so significantly that the poor Russian people, these poor people in Russia, who should be our friends, but they can't be because they're forced to live under the dictatorship of a sociopath, and we've got an idiot in the White House who's supporting him instead of helping these poor people. Right? The value of the ruble collapsed so significantly that durable goods like washing machines, furniture, television sets, and jewelry are more valuable than the currency in Russia. And at one point during the crisis, it took 75 rubles to buy $1. Okay? This crisis is still continuing to this day. It would have gotten even worse, right, if Donald Trump had been enforcing the new sanctions that came through with Congress. But the reason he won't enforce them is because that's going to hurt his business interests. And that's going to go back to the slideshow that the 2 charts that I showed you. We're going to get to that. But the end result of the sanctions are this, pickles. Okay, that's the end result, pickles. Because it put Comrade Putin in a real Putin pickle. And he knows it. Okay, because Vladimir Putin understands something, right, about economic instability. One such example is in Europe. Another such example is in Mother Russia itself, and another such example is economic stability in Libya. Okay, for the first example, right, Europe and Germany. This is a picture of the Treaty of Versailles, which ended the First World War. Okay, it made Germany, okay, pay billions of dollars in fines for its aggressions. But remember, okay, in a post-war post-war economy where Germany was the losing side, they had no money. Okay, so the Deutschmark became worthless and led to widespread civil unrests in Germany. And because their economy collapsed, okay, it allowed this man to come to power. It was one of the things that allowed this man to come to power. I don't want to oversimplify Hitler's rise to power. But without that economic instability, he would have never happened. Okay? How about another example on Russia itself? How about the last Tsar? This is something that Vladimir Putin knows all too well. This is Nicholas II. His name was Nicholas the Bloody. And just like Vladimir Putin, he killed unarmed civilians. His leadership led to economic turmoil, and he was constantly getting his country involved in war and political messes. Because Vladimir Putin is essentially a czar himself, right? That's who he wants to be. But it did not end well for Nicholas II because his entire family was gunned down by furious Russian people, right? But that's who Vladimir Putin wants to emulate, okay? And finally, what about this? What else haunts Vladimir Putin, right? Do you think this might? Do you think that this kind of economic unrest might also haunt him? Okay, so that, of course, is what we all know in the modern era, the death of Muammar Gaddafi, right? That haunts him as well, okay? And you have got to really love the fact that this is the kid who killed him, and he killed him with a gold-plated pistol, right? It looks like either a 9 or a 45, wearing a New York Yankees cap, who probably knows more about Derek Jeter's stats than I do. Okay? That also haunts Putin, because just like in post-World War I Germany, just like the last Tsar, just like Libya, this is exactly the same situation that Vladimir Putin is facing in Russia. And he knows that unless he fixes things, he's going to become like all three of these people. He knows that, okay? This is what he wants to avoid, his own death, because of his own stupidity and his own greed and his own inability to understand that the world is bigger than Vladimir Putin. He's a narcissist, he's a sociopath, and he's a criminal. But the ironic part is that this is the only way things are going to end for him. Things are not going to end well for Vladimir Putin. So finally, this is how it all ties together. These two men need each other. Putin needs Trump, right? And Trump needs Putin, because one is broke and one is facing death. Okay? And both men need this man right here, Bashar al-Assad. Okay? Because when you are a desperate, mostly bankrupt, feckless, and incompetent, big-mouthed, racist bully, and no one in America will do business with you, right? Because no one in America wants to do business with him, the only way to change the fact that you are losing more money than you are getting is to become president of the United States. That's the only way to change your fortune, right? Then, when you're president, it forces people to do business with you. This is why he ran to be president. You just got schooled by Trump University, man. Okay? And when you are a bloodthirsty, murdering, economy-wrecking, charming, sociopathic dictator who now fears for his life, right? Because based upon historical context, Vladimir Putin knows that this is coming. Okay? The only way to change your fate is to help your buddy win the presidency. It's the only way to change that. Okay? And both of these colossal losers in life need Syria. Okay? This is how it all ties together. Okay? This is one of the reasons that these two men work together, right? It's vast, right? But this is one of the principal reasons. Okay? Why so Syria, everyone? Right? Now let's take a look at a map. Okay? This is a map off the coast of Syria. This is Block 1, Block 2, and Block 3. And what are these blocks? These are the underdeveloped blocks of oil and natural gas off the coast of Syria. Okay, everyone, now let's take a look at a second map. This is a current map of the Syrian civil war. And I say current in quotation marks because at the time that I put this together, it was a current map, but it's changed a lot since then. But you can find it for yourself. So remember when Donald Trump said, wouldn't it be nice if we knocked the hell out of an enemy together, right, with ISIS? Well, let's take a look at these areas of the civil war. This area that's color shaded in red is controlled by Bashar al-Assad. The area that is in gray is the Islamic State. This area in yellow is the Kurds. This area in green is rebel-backed American forces, which of course Donald Trump no longer supports. He's not giving them any help anymore. This is why. Because this is the area here of Syria's natural gas and oil, and this is the area that everyone is fighting over. ISIS needs to get their hands on that, right? And both the Kurds and the rebel-backed American forces want to overthrow them, Bashar al-Assad, to get their hands on it. You can see what a colossal mess it is. But Donald Trump is on the side of Russia, not America, because he just stopped funding and helping the rebel-backed American forces. But take a look at that. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. The area that you see in blue on the left of your screen, that's where the underdeveloped blocks of oil and natural gas are. This is what it's all about. And this is how the rise in Donald Trump, this is how Donald Trump's rise to power correlates with an increase in the stocks of the Russian energy sector, because it was based upon the enthusiasm that Donald Trump was going to help them. Okay? So, desperate times call for desperate measures. This is an interview published in the German newspaper called The Bild. We have direct evidence of how bad things are in Russia from the dictator himself, where Comrade Putin Pickleski said this: "The sanctions are severely harming Russia. We are suffering dangerous revenue losses in our exports of oil and natural gas." Well, yeah, he can't sell them. He's losing billions of dollars. Okay, and just like magic, okay, he eyes up Syria. Okay, because that's going to help him. He can work out a deal with Bashar al-Assad and they can make money. Because Putin knows, right, that ISIS, right, the Kurds, and the rebel forces all want him gone. And these two buddies here, okay, can tap this natural gas to make tons of money. Okay? This is the way that Vladimir Putin saves face, by bypassing the damning economic effects on his economy. He can bypass the Russian sanctions, and he doesn't have to be killed once his own people rise up against him. Right? That's why he's helping Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Okay? Bye-bye, Russian sanctions. But prior to Trump winning the White House, one man stood in Vladimir Putin's way. Okay, this wonderful president of ours that the Republicans hate. They hate him because he was successful. They hate him because he was a black guy. They hate him because he was better than them, right? Better than Donald Trump. That's why they hate him, okay? The Obama administration's support of the Syrian rebels has frustrated Putin at every single turn, and there is no coincidence that Putin's military actions in Syria between 2015 and 2016 correlate exactly with the worsening financial realities of his country. As the situation in Russia gets worse, Vladimir Putin is upping his military game in Syria. Here's a brief timeline. In 2014, after the sanctions came in, Russia, along with China, vetoed a UN resolution referring Syria to an international criminal court because they don't want this guy punished. And Bashar al-Assad was referred to a criminal court because he was already dropping chemical weapons on his own people. Okay, at this point, Russia was sending arms into for Bashar al-Assad, and he was helping to repair al-Assad's air force, but the involvement was mostly political and assistive at that point. And then in 2015, as things began to get worse in Russia, okay, Putin upped his game and started bombing the Islamic State and the rebel-backed forces directly. Okay, and then finally in 2016, as his economy began to collapse, he sent in troops. Okay, so because of what's going on there, we ask ourselves now, we look at what Comrade Trumpsky is hiding and why he won't release his tax returns. And for that answer, okay, why Donald Trump won't release his tax returns, we look to this list right here. And what is this list? These are the top 6 energy companies in Russia. Okay? Of those 6 top energy companies in Russia, 5 of them are oil and natural gas producers. And those 5 are Gazprom, Tatneft, Rosneft. This one, which I always say wrong, Gas, or however you say that. And of course the one in America that most people are familiar with, Lukoil. Of those 5, okay, of all 5 of these, how many of them do you think saw a massive surge in profits as Donald Trump was winning the presidency, as he was rising to power? How many of them saw profits? The answer is 4 of them. 4 of the major 5. So, they are, okay, Lukoil, Rosneft, Gas, however you say that, and Tatneft. Okay, they all saw increases. okay, once this man became president of the United States. And this is why the Donald, okay, won't release his tax returns. Okay, because somewhere hidden in all of the LLCs and somewhere in his vast empire, okay, he took these tax breaks from all of his failed businesses and he purchased Russian oil and energy stocks. That's why he's hiding his tax return. It's that simple. His children, or he himself, or his surrogates own millions, if not billions of dollars in these energy companies. Okay? We'll go back to that. That's why he doesn't want anybody to figure this out, but I've already figured it out for you. Okay? It's a lie. It's all fake news. Okay, well, all he's got to do to prove me wrong is release his tax return. So they all own money. So think about this. They all own money in Russian energy stocks, right? But by then the sanctions were coming in, right? The sanctions were coming in, and he started losing money because Russia couldn't export their oil and their natural gas. But by then, okay, not only had Donald Trump lost money in his golf, in his golf holdings, in his real estate holdings, and in his casinos, but by then Trump University had also been sued and went bankrupt. Trump Steaks had also gone under. Okay, his real estate, his casinos, and his golf all went under. Okay, Trump Vodka failed. Trump Airline failed. Okay, Trump the Game failed. Okay, and you know, this is what it comes down to. His business models are based upon failure upon failure upon failure. He's a terrible businessman. And who does Donald Trump blame the most for his losses in the Russian energy sector? Now, he blames this man right here. Of course he blames Barack Obama. Of course he does. Right? So now here is the final correlation. Right? The dates don't lie. This is a picture that you can get on your own. A copy of the Lukoil energy stock, which you can find with an internet connection. And I'm going to point now, this is a video I put together showing all of them, but it's going to take too long. I've condensed it for you later in the presentation. But if you look at the dates here, from 2016 to 2017, you see, right, that this is when Donald Trump is winning the primary and becoming president, right? And you can see here in 2015 they had another major bump, and I'm going to show you what that was in just a minute. That's called the February 13th stock bump. Okay? And I've outlined it for you here, and I've circled it for you, and you can see, right, that all 5 of the top natural gas and oil exporters in Russia on February 13th, 2015, right, which is right back here, okay, right back here, you can see that they all have the same thing. So we have to ask ourselves what was going on. Now remember, of course, they all had this stock bump when the Russian economy was collapsing, right? So what was going on February 13th, 2015? This was just 5 months before Donald Trump announced his bid for the presidency, and this was going on right here. Okay, Vladimir Putin had a meeting with his economic advisors. All the energy guys were there, and this was almost 1 year to the day at the start of the sanctions when their economy began to fall apart. Okay, this is the February 13th, 2015 stock bump. Okay, just 5 months before Donald Trump ran to be president of the United States. Okay, what was discussed at this meeting? While the cameras were rolling, this is what the sociopathic murderer said, Vladimir Putin. I see today's meeting as part of the broader discussion to stabilize and develop the Russian economy. Our tasks include diversifying the economy, creating conditions for faster growth, creating the right environment from the top and right down to the municipal level. The government has begun implementing the plan that was drafted and approved. Overall, the agenda is clear, right? Then the cameras went away, and everybody left, and all of these terrified businessmen, furious at Vladimir Putin, okay, got the real meeting, right? Let's re-examine Putin's words, right? Stabilize the Russian economy, because he won't leave the Ukraine. Creating conditions for faster growth. The government has begun implementing the plan that was drafted and approved, right? Drafted and approved. And so what was that plan that was drafted and approved that led to the February 13th stock bump as the Russian economy was collapsing? Well, the cameras were away, right? Let's show the hidden meaning. Hey, this would be a conversation approximately 2 months before, right? The February 13th stock bump, right? Here we go. Now, doesn't this kind of make sense, everyone? Let's take a look.
Vlad, it's me, Donald. How are you? Comrade Trumpsky, it's good to hear from you again. It's good to hear from you too. How are things going for you in Russia? Ah, they're horrible. Ever since I invaded the Ukraine, that fucking Obama asshole has been wrecking my economy with sanctions. I'm afraid that my own people are going to kill me, that fucking Obama asshole.
Right, because at this point, right, Vladimir Putin was probably crying, right, if not shitting himself.
I hear you, Vlad. Ever since those sanctions came in, I've lost millions of dollars worth of Russian stock profits. That fucking Obama has cost me tons of money too. Duh, because I'm brilliant. I'm brilliant.
Well, what are we going to do about it, comrade?
Oh, Vlad?
Sorry about my crappy Donald Trump imitation.
Vlad, listen, I'm going to run for president of the United States.
A big, long, pregnant pause.
What? That's a wonderful idea, comrade. This is the best news I've had since I silenced all those journalists and that Anna whore was killed on my birthday. I agree, and listen, I'm going to run on the Democratic ticket.
Another long, pregnant pause.
Comrade, listen. I love you. Don't be fucking douchebag. The Democrats are too smart. You will never get the nomination.
You don't think so?
Of course I think so. You need to run as Republican.
Republican? You think I should?
The Republicans are stupid and easily manipulated by fear. All I have to do is spread lies.
Spread lies? You mean about the Democrats?
Of course. I have my spies break into DNC computers the way Nixon broke into Watergate.
That's a great idea. I love Nixon. What do you hope to find?
I won't find anything, but doesn't matter. I spread active hack through WikiLeaks. The mere appearance of conspiracy will get nut jobs to line up and vote for you, comrade.
Vlad, that's a wonderful idea. You supply the fear, and with my showmanship, I'll supply the rhetoric. Now think about that. Vladimir Putin supplies the conspiracy. Donald Trump supplies the rhetoric. That's what they did.
That's right, comrade. I supply fear, you supply rhetoric.
Now, doesn't that make sense, everyone? When you step back and look at it. Okay.
After I win the election, I'm going to lift your sanctions and we can go back to stealing land and making money on your energy stocks. And then I will send ground troops into Syria, kill all those rebels and sympathetic civilians.
Because he's a piece of shit, right?
And after we win war in Syria, we help Bashar al-Assad tap his resources. We make billions.
Vlad,
I feel awkward saying this, but I love you, man. I love you, man. I love you, man.
I love you too, comrade.
Mother Russia welcomes you. That's why I give you Russian prostitutes pee in your face.
Now, doesn't that make sense? Doesn't that make sense, everyone, when you step back and look at it? This is why they love each other. Now, finally, we're going to insert some values and bring this all together. If the rise of Donald Trump to the presidency is considered a positive thing by a lot of Americans, and here we see them, thank you, Jesus, President Trump. Jesus was not a Republican. But anyway, I'll get to that one day. But if the rise of Donald Trump is considered a positive thing by a lot of Americans, and it is considered positive by his supporters, then we can say that a positive outcome is a positive number. A positive real number, a positive integer. It's a positive whole real number. Right? So, the rationale for that is this. When you get a pay raise, your salary goes up. Right? So, because the rise of Donald Trump to the presidency is considered a positive thing by a lot of his supporters, then we can assert positive values over a timeline. So we'll start at 0 when Donald Trump announces his candidacy. And we'll let Donald Trump, right, like I said, he announces his candidacy, it equals 0. And we further let, okay, all 11 primary debates have an increasing value of 0.25. This area here that you see right here, this is the data, right, that was used for this argument. You can get it anywhere. Okay, this is easily found. So he won all 11 primary debates. Remember, he skipped one because of a temper tantrum with Fox News. And he won, and we're going to assign a value of 0.25 to each debate that he wins for 11 total debates. And we're going to further let his losing all 3 presidential debates, according to almost all of the polls, right, have a negative value of 0.25. And here is the poll results that shows that Hillary Clinton won all of the debates against Donald Trump. Right here. Okay? And I hope that Hillary Clinton one day watches this, because this is for her too. This is what she probably didn't see in the day-to-day chaos of running a presidential campaign. But anyway, Donald Trump loses all 3 of the presidential debates as a negative value of 0.25. Okay? Then we're going to assign his winning the presidency 1 whole value. Okay, now, what do we get, right, when we graph those numbers? Okay? This is what we get. Now, one of the things I have to show you is this. You see 11 primary debates for the Republican ticket here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? So there were 11 primary debates, but when I was graphing the data, I made a mistake, and I forgot to put a placeholder over here for 0 along the x-axis. So when you look at this, understand that it doesn't exactly line up with 11 primary debates like it's supposed to, and that's because I accounted for the 0 value at the 1 slot along the x-axis. If I had put the 0 over here where it belonged, it would look more accurate to you. So just be aware of that minor discrepancy here in the data, so that, you know, if it looks a little funny to you because it doesn't line up exactly with 11, it's because I forgot a placeholder for 0. Okay? But nevertheless, this is Donald Trump at a positive value every time he wins the presidential debate. This is a negative value for every time this is a positive value for every time he wins a primary debate. This is a negative value for every time he loses the 3 presidential debates. And this is 1 whole value for winning the presidency. Right? Now, we compare that to Luke Oil. This here is the February 13th, 2015 stock bump. This is where Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump and his campaign hashed out the plan to help Donald Trump win the presidency. Okay, and here we see this is where the primary season begins, and this is where he wins the presidency. Okay, and you can see that right around here, as he's losing the presidential debates, the climb of the value of the stock market levels off. And this is because the stock market these days is based upon investor enthusiasm. Right? So here we see he wins the presidency and the stock market goes up. But you can see that the overall trend is clear, and it matches exactly Donald Trump's rise to power. Now, this would be a remarkable coincidence if it were only 1 stock of the big 5 in the Russian energy sector. So we have to ask ourselves then in our inquiry, right? In our inquiry, are there others that match this pattern? Well, yeah. As a matter of fact, there are plenty of others that match this pattern. Okay? There's Tatneft, right? The other energy producer. You can see, boom, Donald Trump wins the presidency. Kaboom. Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. Right? Donald Trump makes a lot of money. Okay? How about another one? Well, there's Rosneft. There's Rosneft increasingly gaining in value. Here's the February 13th, 2015 stock bump right here, where Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin hatched out the plan to supply the fear and the rhetoric to manipulate people. And here you see it goes up and up and up and up, and Vladimir Putin saves his own life from his own people. Right? How about another one? Well, we see that Gas, I know I'm not saying that right, but we see that here is the February 13th, 2015 stock bump. They got a big hit, right? They're a bit more chaotic, and then they collapse again. Now, I'm not sure why this is. This could be because new sanctions came in, or because maybe the stock split. Something happened here. I'm not exactly sure why. But here we see that during the primary season of 2016 and 2017, they get a bump. They don't exactly have the same increase in value as others, okay? But they still, nevertheless, during the primary season, get a bump before they collapse, right? And as if it couldn't be any more obvious, who did President Trump get to be the Secretary of State? Well, of course, this guy, right? Retired ExxonMobil chief Rex Tillerson, because he needs an oil guy to work with Russia, to work with Syria, to make money off of their underdeveloped oil and natural gas. Ladies and gentlemen, Democrats and deplorables, okay, the easily fooled by the con men of the world, okay, there is your evidence. And that's why it's good to be in with the Donald, right? Assuming he doesn't fire you and stab you in the back. And by the way, here's Paul Manafort, who's going to be indicted by the FBI. It's all fake news. It's all fake news. Okay, that's why it's good to be in with the Donald, right? Because, right, you make lots of money by being a lying, cheating fuck, right? By being a total, unabashed hypocrite. Right? And of course, right now, Rex Tillerson is on his way out the door. And the reason he's on his way out the door is because, number one, it's taking a long time for their investment to pay off. And number two, he's finally come to the realization that Donald Trump is a maniac and he's ignorant. But remember, these people are all in good with the Donald, right? Okay, there's his other douchebag son, right? Any guy who wears a lavender tie is a douchebag, right? So, you know, and that's one reason why Donald Trump, won't release his tax returns, right? He won't release his tax returns. And spare me the argument, right, you idiotic deplorables. Hey, well, he leaked his tax returns from 2005, showed he paid $38 million. Yeah, he released one tax return from 2005, one of the years that idiot actually paid taxes. And who was the person who probably leaked those tax returns? You betcha. You betcha. There he is, that dummy right there in a candy cane tie, right? That's the guy who leaked his own tax return in 2005. And somewhere in the noise, okay, in all of this, okay, is this. Okay, somewhere in all of this noise, hidden in all of the rhetoric and all of the lies, is this. That does not lie. Any person who looks at this data can come to the same conclusion. Just remember to have a placeholder for 0, assign a positive value to his winning the debates, a negative value to losing the presidential debates, one whole value to winning the presidency, and when you compare it to the Russian energy stock, along with the February 13th, 2015 stock bump, the entire plan becomes clear. That's what he did. That's it. Right? This is the final point, okay? If it is not the Donald who owns these stocks directly, if it's not directly in his portfolio, then you can bet, okay, that these two douchebags do. Uday Drumpf and Kusei Drumpf. Uday and Kusei, they own Russian energy stocks. And these stock purchases are hidden somewhere in this empire. And that's the truth. And this, everyone, is the missing puzzle piece between these two men. That's it. That's why he ran. The Putin, the Vladimir Putin Donald Trump connection. Now, doesn't that make sense, everyone? Doesn't that just make sense? Okay? And finally, that brings up one more question for the deplorables. Right? So let's bring in Tuckface. Let's bring in Tucker Carlson. Let's bring in the biggest douchebag of all to ask this final question. It's something that vexes the easily conned and the easily confused. Right? Look at that. Look at that idiot. The question that we ask ourselves is this. If Trump is in the business of Syrian oil and energy, right, then why did he do this? Right? Why did he bomb Syria? Remember this now forgotten, right, Syrian bombing campaign? If Trump is in the business of helping Syrian oil and energy to enrich himself through proxy investments in Russia, then why did he bomb them? After all, right, Donald Trump cares so much about the beautiful dead baby. He cared so much about the beautiful dead babies. Right? He cared so much about them. That's why he bombed Syria. Right? Right? Wrong. Okay? Donald Trump's Syrian missile strike killed 26 children because there were military families living on the airbase that he bombed. Okay? And there was not one fucking conservative douchebag in this country, not one pro-life person in this country out protesting the death of these children. Not one. So, he didn't bomb Syria because he cared so much about the dead Syrian children, because he killed the Syrian children himself. The real reason he bombed the Syrian airport is because nothing beats the best way to hide the truth than a good excuse. Donald Trump saw an opportunity. Bashir al-Assad used chemical weapons, and he said, aha, I can bomb it and distract everyone. And that's what he did. So, where do we go from here, everyone? Well, there's no such thing as the mainstream media. There's just the truth followed by Fox News and Breitbart, which is lies. But where we go from here is this. You guys are doing a wonderful job at investigating Trump. You're doing a wonderful job, so keep up the excellent work. Okay? This is where we go from here. Okay? You guys have the ability and the connections to find those stock purchases. All you have to do is find the stock purchases that connect Donald Trump to the Russian energy sector. Okay? You can find this. If you find these stock purchases, right, you'll be able to graph this and correlate it exactly. It's Trump's rise to political power and the climb of the Russian energy sector. Because it's hidden somewhere within all these criminals, right? Somewhere within this vast empire, okay? These people hatched this scheme, and it worked. Okay, so don't get discouraged, right? After all, it's all of you against these two liars, okay? And finally, there's one more thing that we have to discuss before we go, just to prove my point. As of this recording, remember, this orange monkey here, right? He stopped funding the Syrian rebels to help out Vladimir Putin, right? Remember, we discussed that. But remember, right before he did that, he had the now-forgotten G20 secret meeting where Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump met for an hour behind closed doors. And nobody knows what they talked about. Well, can't we kind of piece that together now in this context? What was that secret hour-long meeting about? Okay? Comrade, now that we are alone, are you going to stop funding troops in Syria to help me?
Of course I will. Just like we talked about. The world is so stupid they can't figure out what's going on.
And now that we have won, what about those workers at the carrier plant? Their jobs are still going to Mexico.
Now that I have their vote, I don't need those poor stupid idiots anymore. We won, my love.
Right? Doesn't that just make sense? Right? It's all fake news. Right? No, you just have to pay attention to what's going on. That's all. And, what will be the Republican spin on this? I guess he's such a douchebag. Well, he's bringing peace and stability to the region. That's why he stopped funding the Syrian rebels. Thank you, Trump Jesus. Give me a break, man. Give me a break. He's not bringing peace and stability anywhere. He's just looking to help Vladimir Putin to enrich himself. He's a businessman. He doesn't care about you. This is America now. Trump Mussolini is supporting Hitler Putin. Good job. Good job, deplorables. That's it for now. Future topics for this blog site will include the religious hypocrisy of the Republican Party and the alt-right. That's an easy topic. We're going to do a complete health assessment of Donald, because remember, his GI doctor said he was in excellent health. We're going to do a complete health assessment of the sickly Steve Bannon. He's not going to be healthy much longer. Very sick dude. And we're going to do a presentation and opinion on why this psychopath is so angry. Look at that. I hope she never has children. All right, and one topic of importance that we're definitely going to discuss is the long-term implications of this fateful day. All right, that's it for now. All right, that is the blogger has spoken. I do have a Twitter feed, and visit my website. The more clicks I get, the better I do.